Hi guys. Um, I'm going to be showing you. Thanks for joining me. First of all, I'm going to be showing you the basic interface of 3ds Max, what you're seeing here, what I have, and what you don't have. And I'm actually going to be showing you how to use certain things in here, on like the toolbars, the command tab, and everything. So this is just basically for like beginners who just open 3ds Max and like the hell are all these tools, and am I going to be using each and every one of them? The answer to that is no, you're not going to be using each and every one of them. So to start off, let's just close this for a second. If you follow my mouse real quick, I'm just going to point it here for you to see. The very first thing that you realize is that we have over here on the very top bar, this is called the menu bar. Now the menu bar, this is where we have all our things like the file, edit group, and create. Everything is all in here. But I actually don't use much of these. I only use a few of them, like rendering, animation, and so on. So this is just where you can find like certain tools and everything from here. Then the next bar which we have here, this is called our toolbar. Now if you realize my toolbar is kind of like lengthy, but if I just go down to what some of these tools are, which you would not really be having them, this section which you don't really have is an add-on, which it's a plugin called Phoenix FD. So with this, it allows me to like create a variant of things in here, and then these are like forest park objects, drilling bitmark, and my corona render together with V-Ray render over here. So you would not be using any of these for now. The very basic first thing we need to know is our select tool. This is our undo and redo tool. And then this over here is called our select tool. So this tool is basically what you use to like pick and select objects in 3ds Max. And this over here is what we call a move tool. So if for instance, and I go to the right hand section, this right hand section over here is called the command area. So in the command area, you have a variant of things. In here, we have the plus sign that allows you to like create basic shapes of objects in here. And we have the next one, it is just like a rainbow, it's called a modifier. The modifier still allows you to like pick a number of like modifiers which you're actually able to apply them to your objects in here. But in this case, we have nothing selected, so there's nothing to modify in our object. And then we have a couple more over here, and then all here. So you realize that when you click on some of these ones, you realize that okay, you're probably working in here. You don't really know what's going. You're just working in here and like, I'm looking for something. I don't really see the bar looks different. You just had to click on these ones to navigate to what it was originally. So over here we have like some basic standard shapes, light and everything. We also have some quite a number of things in here, but I'm not going to talk about that now in a probably different video. We have some shapes, lines, donuts, eggs, and so on. I'm just going to go to standard primitives, and what I'm going to do now is going to create a box. So I click on the box, it turns blue. I left click and drag into any of the directions, and then I press move upwards, and this is the box I has created. Now the shortcut to go back into the select tool, I believe is Q. When you click on Q, if you realize the box is no longer highlighted, and I can click basically anywhere I want. Okay, so I'm just gonna leave it over here. Select by object Q. So what we need to like do here is that we also have on our bottom left tool, bottom left section. This is where we can have our quads, which is also what we call our viewport area. This whole side here, where we're looking at, is our viewport. Okay, so in the viewport area, if we click on this play side, for instance, we can see quite a number of like quads in here. So I just chose the fourth quad, and by choosing the fourth quad, I realized that this has gone from one big square to like 4 different squares. So in here, it allows you to see this on the bottom right section. This is more of our perspective view. And to rotate, you need to press and hold the left alt button and then your middle mouse button to rotate. Now over here is a front view of the cube, top right corner. Top left corner is a top view of the cube. Bottom left corner is a left view of the cube. Now, when you're in here, you can also left click and middle mouse button to like move in an isometric view. You're not necessarily limited to like, front, face, left, right. So if I go back into the first quadrant, I am going to show you that we have over here also what we call the orbital view. This also allows you to click on the different faces in our object. So we have the right, we have the back, we have the left, and you can just click on any one. You can click on home to bring it back to the center and back into default perspective. That's where you have here the orbital view. So if say I want to move my object around, what do we need to do? If you want to move things around, it's quite simple. We're going to have to click on the select and move tool. So when we click on this, you can see we now have this blue, green, and red, directional keys here. So we can move it on the x-axis. When I click on the red, you can see it turns yellow. We can move it on the y-axis. We can also move it up and down on the z-axis. And if you want, you can move it somewhere in the middle here, if you just want to just move it around freely. Okay. And then one other tool that we will be needing is this tool called the select and rotate, or the orbital view. The shortcut for this is E. I don't know why it's E, but then they just made rotate called to be E. The shortcut for move is W, and the shortcut to rotate is E. Yeah, I know they're pretty weird, but anyway, so in here we have this ball which allows you to move on, let's say, the yellow, which makes it to move in this way. You have the green to make it move in this way. You have the blue because it's slanted a little bit. It's now moving also in a different way. You can also click somewhere on the outer one to move it in a different, also in a perspective freely, which is a free form of like perspective, I believe. And you can move it this way as well. Okay. And then one other tool that we'll be needing here is a select and uniform scale. This is what we'll use if you want to scale your objects. We can either scale from the z-axis, the x, and then the y. But I usually prefer to scale from the midpoint where you can see highlighted. So when I click, I can make the object very small, or I can make it very big, or very small again. Yeah. So we can also move it on the z-axis. What it's going to happen is it's going to make it flatten the scale from the top side. And if you move to the y, it's going to make it, actually move it the wrong way. If I move in the y-axis, it's going to make it look wide. There's a scaling options in here, and we can move it this way. I'm just going to leave it at default by now. I just press Ctrl Z to undo for the shortcut key. Yeah. So what other thing do we need to know? Oh yes, we also know that this section is called the lower bar area. This is where we're going to be using to create animations. But then we'll not be doing that for now. And if you look on the right hand side here, these are more isolation by selection options. And we have over here measurements on the X, Y, and the Z. And we have in this area over here, which is basically for zooming in or extents, and a bit more of zooming options. Okay, so we have in this section over here where you see perspective and default shading. What this basically means is that over here right now we're in perspective view. So when we click on this, we can see where we have cameras, lights, and so on. And right now we have no camera set up, no light set up, so we can only move from perspective to orthographic. So the shortcuts, as you can see over here, P and U. So we're going to click on orthographic. That changes your viewport to a more graph-like option here. And if I press on P, which is shortcuts, it goes to perspective and it changes.
One thing we can also do here is by when we go to default shading, we can now choose what we want it to look like. But in here, what I usually like to use just to use the wireframe override that allows you to see the vertices of the box that we created and what is actually in there. So when you go back in here, we can click on default shading and then we have it back into our original view. So there you have it. This is basically the main tools we'll be using in here. They're a bit more like, we have our render setup button here. We also have our material editor button in here. And then the rest are just for like your render engines, you know. So there you have it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys all in the next one.